actually turn your phone off.
No interruptions. I'm honored.
We'll see. Dave has a bit of a squirrel brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave works for a living.
Dave works for a living. So that phone just buzzes, and I can see the tension build as he wants to check it, and I watch.
We'll be in podcasts, and it'll be like 50 minutes in, and my phone has gone off like 20 times.
Right.
And I'm looking at him. I'm like, I'm going to wrap it up. We got to be done. So I'll just turn it over.
Got to pay the bill.
Oh, even more so.
Yeah.
We'll feel the vibration.
Let's do it.
That's really special. Okay, let's jump right in. Welcome to the North Idaho Experience. I got to say, we are also on all of the audio platforms. So if you don't want to see our faces, you can listen to us there. Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all the big stuff. You can find us there as well. Special guest today. I say that every time, though, so I don't know if that's actually... I shouldn't have told you that. We've got Matt Edwards here. He's the executive director of the Citizens Alliance of Idaho. Has a background in film and media, so it's not your first time behind a microphone, I gather.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
I honestly don't know what the Citizens Alliance of Idaho is, so we're going to find out today. And I'm excited about that. We're going to talk about politics, people. So it should get rather spicy. The good news is you can't reach us here, so you can't get mad at us. I'm sure I'll hear about it in the comments. They're always entertaining. Anyway, so, dude, give us a little bit about your background. You know, where are you from? How'd you get here? And then we'll get into politics.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Originally born and raised in Southern California. Which
we just lost about 1,200 years right now.
I know, right? And I'm going to stereotype a little bit. I feel like if you're born in Iowa, you're into corn. You know, and if you're born into Southern California, you're into movies. You know?
I was going to say surfing, but okay, movies.
Yeah,
too.
surfing
movies
too,
make more sense. Yeah,
so that's a big industry, right?
Yeah.
So I just got after I left college, I've always wanted to be in entertainment in some capacity. So I worked my way through the ranks and ended up, working on reality television, working in independent film, music video, any gig that I could get, behind the camera or in front of the camera. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
I was just making connections, networking.
Right.
I mean, that's the nature of the business. And so that led me to kind of then check my soul a little bit as I've always been of a more conservative persuasion. And so, as you're going throughout Hollywood and you're becoming more and more disillusioned with how your life is going, what's going on in the world, and you kind of look at and you say, I'm kind of contributing to this because I truly believe that culture is upstream from politics and kind of dictates where everything is going. And so I did a little bit of soul searching. I said, I don't know if I can be involved in a lot of these projects that come my way because I just don't philosophically agree with them. I don't, the tone, the feel of it all. And I'm being very general. I just didn't really agree with it. And so I tried to look for a way that I could share my worldview or at least help like-minded folks in the industry and kind of work together.
It seems like having a conservative persuasion is really hard to work in film because it is very, very liberal.
Serious question. I have a very serious question.
Yeah.
Is it true that these very high-paid actors are drinking the blood of young children?
I never saw that.
Never saw it.
Never saw that
Curious.
personally.
Just wanted to know.
I never saw that
Conspiracy
personally.
theory number one.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
But I'll say this, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I saw a lot of interesting folks, involved in with interesting ideas, let's just say, but I mean, that kind of thing is just like, it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, it's nothing surprising nowadays after going through everything we've all gone through.
Yeah.
With and just what's going on in the world. So, but yeah, so that and then God blessed me with the opportunity to get involved in and stay involved, getting work and being paid to work in the field that I love, but also to try and help advance the careers, because I was getting older at that point, to start helping advance the careers of young up and coming filmmakers who shared a worldview, and so right before I was running a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles that gave out money to help, like-minded filmmakers and make their calling card, make short films and that sort of thing, and get ahead in the business. And then when came crashing in, the entire film industry shut down because the whole point of
For safety.
exactly for safety purposes, you can't meet together, so if you can't really do stuff like this, you can't make a movie.
There are some people in California meeting together.
That's true.
Well, Newsom. Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about something else.
All right.
I'm trying to get the vibe here. I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
you guys lead. I'll follow. I'm happy to keep up wherever you guys go.
Dave's filled with sarcasm. Just roll with that.
Yeah, so the industry kind of crashed, and then my organization collapsed.
Yeah,
because funding dried up. Because who's going to be donating money to a filmmaking organization during right?
You know what's funny is almost every conversation we have now, there's some tie to, hey, before and then after. It is such a narrative in everyone's life.
It's a completely different world. Even weird. We're getting ready to go on a cruise next year, and we started cruising. It was something that our family fell in love with about 5 or 6 years ago. And when we started cruising was after cruising was a different experience.
You can't get your own ice cream anymore.
No, that was one of the cool things, right? You run around and there's ice cream machines. You get whatever you want. Even at dinner, they would be like, "What do you want for dinner?" And you're like, "I'll take 2 of these." And they're like, "Yeah, you want 3?" Like they would do it. And then we went afterwards, and there was lines for everything. And even when we went to go get food, they're like, they'd be like, "What appetizer you want?" I'd be like, "I want this one and this one." He goes, "Oh, you want that one in plate?" I'm like, "Wait a minute." It was almost like everything had changed, even the amount that they were giving you and how they served you and treated you, and then how you had to stand in line for things or you had to be separated from people.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Why do things get worse after a major event? Like same thing with 9/11. Like remember you'd go to the airport and you'd go right up to the gate and you'd say goodbye to your loved ones as they walked onto the.
Well,
now you got to do it at the curb.
Well, so here's the thing,
you
right?
get that far.
That was safe forever until it was taught to you that it's not safe.
Right.
They used to be safe to take your family to the plane. Now it's not safe.
Right.
And so now that you've created this narrative that one thing happened, I mean, it's like gun control or anything else, right? You base all of your actions off of one event.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're so connected nowadays, people see an event that happens somewhere else in the country and go, well, I don't want that to happen here. So let's do everything we can to make sure that never happens, that's not the way we're supposed to live.
Yeah, it's not freedom,
No.
I forget who said it, but a lot of people say it, it's like security or freedom. If you want security, you're going to give up more of your freedom.
Yeah,
and the price of freedom is less security at times.
Every one of these big events has been a slow erosion of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, even like 9/11, right after was obviously it was a horrible incident, but right after was a really good time in the U.S. Right, we saw American flags everywhere. There were some positives that came out of it. It felt very unified. But you're right. Then we lost privacy rights.
Mm-hmm.
The
Patriot Act and stuff.
Patriot Act, yeah. And then with now, huge fundamental shifts in the way we live our lives, which is wild. So I always wonder, like, oh man, what's next?
Mm-hmm. I am a firm believer that bad things are just opportunities. Wow, did that just get?
It did.
They're listening, dude, for sure. They are listening. I don't know how that goes.
Light looks good on you, though.
Right, thank you. Yeah, it's my tan skin. I believe that those are opportunities. I mean, you can go all the way back. Not that this is a conspiracy theory podcast, but we will have one coming up. It's coming up. But like, you even look at all the conspiracy between, Pearl Harbor. There's a lot of belief that was allowed to happen because we needed an entrance. We needed a way to get out of the Great Depression. We needed a way to convince our people to have patriotism, to want to go to war, to be able to have something to fight for. And it's the same thing. Like, I feel like the government finds ways to use these opportunities to turn it into something that's going to benefit the control aspect.
Do you think it's intentional? I always default to incompetence when it comes to the government. But I'm starting to shift in that a little bit. Like maybe there is a plan. I hate to think that, but it's hard not to.
A good way to look at life is to never ascribe to malice what you can ascribe to incompetence.
Yeah.
That's generally a good way to think about it. But
is that naive though? Am I naive in thinking that?
I mean, I think at this point, no.
Yeah.
I mean, we're human, right? And so at a certain point, power gets coalesced, and when you're able to control the media and control the narrative, then if you're of an evil mindset, or if you're of a control freak mindset, and you're able to just say, well, all I have to do is switch this or put put on the cover of a magazine this photograph instead of this photograph and watch the world turn.
It's so hard for me to wrap my brain around because I guess I'm a good person and I always have good intentions. So to think that, and I do know there are evil people, right? I was a cop for a long time. I dealt with them. I know there are evil people out there, but it's hard for a person who lives their life in a good way to actually wrap their brain around why someone would want to do that.
I think it's just how anthropology is, right? The government is full of anthropologists, full of people that study people and how they're going to react. You did it as a cop, right? Yeah. You would ask a question and you knew how people would react. So there was a certain way that you would tie it in.
Right. These aren't my pants. That's what they would always say.
Right. It's the same
They're
thing.
Not my pants. Oh,
yeah,
like
that's
if there's drugs or something.
Yes.
These aren't my pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. And then, but it's also like, really? It's the best you got.
Right.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It creates a reasonable doubt. But I think that just the fact that they study people so much that they have an idea of how a collective is going to act in a certain, you know, I mean, you can separate voting patterns by how people responded to that. Who's going to put on a mask and who's not going to.
Right.
You can look through an airport and say, you're voting for Trump and you're voting for Kamala just by whether or not people are wearing a mask.
Right.
Right. I mean, you can get an idea of that. Yeah. So I think it's just a study of that. And I think it's opportunities that present themselves.
Are you guys familiar with like the Milgram experiment or some of these experiments that were done?
Milgram, no.
So there's another one that's not called the Milgram experiment. I'll explain that one first. It's where they take a subject, say you're the subject and you have no knowledge. You're just coming in to be part of the survey. And then they sit you down at a table with 9 other people. So there's 10 total, but all the 9 other people are in on it. They're working with the studier, you know, and everybody gets shown a picture on the wall of 3 lines of different sizes, you know, medium, small, large, and they're labeled 1, 2, 3. And they go down the line. You're at the end, and they go down the line. And they say which one is the tallest line, okay? And you look at it and you go, oh, well, 3 obviously is 3, and everyone down the line goes 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and by the time it comes to you, you're like. And now you're at that breaking point. Do I want to go with the crowd?
Yeah.
Or am I going to stand out and go, y'all are crazy, it's 3, because I can see it.
Right.
Most people go 2.
That's crazy.
And this was an experiment, and they did it over and over and over again. And very few people would buck the system, you know, or buck the trend. Creepy, right?
Sure, want a buck.
Well, you're definitely a bucker, bro. You're a full on mother bucker. Yeah.
There you go.
But it's hard, man. Like you grow up, and I was raised in a family and an environment where, you just like you do the right thing, and a lot of that is following the social norms.
Yeah, yeah.
So I could see how a lot of people would get to that position and be like, "Oh shit!"
And imagine having that information. You know, the guy walks away and has no idea that he was just in that experiment, right?
Right.
But the people that have that information now, and they can just say, well, if we all say the same thing, if we all go on the news, if we're all late night comics making the same joke and reiterating over and over and over again a certain lie, then everybody's going to believe it. And who's going to stand up and say, no, that's not true?
And if you do, we'll cancel you.
Exactly.
You know, it's funny you bring that up because, you know, there was that other experiment. I remember watching this in the fire department. So we talked about we're just a bunch of trained monkeys, right? But I don't know if you guys have seen the monkey one where they have a banana hanging and the monkey would climb the ladder. And when he'd go to touch the banana, he'd get sprayed with water. And he's the only one in there. He's like, this sucks, right? And every time they sprayed him with water, you know, he'd get pissed, so then he'd get down. So then they brought in a second monkey, and the second monkey goes up there, and the first one watches him. And sure enough, he goes up there and they spray him with water. And so they go through this and they start adding monkeys. Well, eventually they're not spraying anybody with water anymore. Okay. Now they're just having a monkey go up to the top. And as that monkey's climbing up, the other monkeys attack him. They don't let him go up there because they know what's going to happen. Now that monkey doesn't even know. Well, eventually they start removing monkeys. Eventually they have monkeys in there that have never seen what happens if you get the banana, but they will attack a monkey if they're going up to get the banana. They have no idea what the actual repercussion is. And that type of societal norm of not even knowing, you know, we talk about having the information. I don't even think we have the information sometimes. I think we just have the reaction, how we're supposed to react. I'm supposed to wear a mask because it is, but you don't actually know what's going to happen. Right. Oh, really weird.
Oh, man, these are interesting.
Yeah, it's good. And then the other one, if you don't mind me sharing, is the Milgram experiment. which is they made a movie about it too. Great, fantastic film. But they would take again one subject. The other person is in on it. And what they would do is they would put the subject, and they did this right after the question. The reason why they did this experiment was after World War II and the Nazis and the horrible things that the Nazis were doing with their doctors and the concentration camps and all that stuff. And the defense for a lot of the lower Nazi regime people was, I was just doing what I was told. Like following orders, right?
Exactly.
And having no, and so what they did was how prevalent is this mindset among our society? And so they would put people behind a desk that had these switches, and on the other side of the wall, they couldn't see each other, but on the other side of the wall is their partner, So if you're on one side and you're on the other side of the wall, and you'll be in on it this time, right? And I'm the instructor. I'm telling you, okay, every time you're going to ask a question, and if he gives you the wrong answer, you're going to flip a switch, and it's going to send a little electric shock to him. And we're going to progress throughout this. And by the time you get to question 10, or wrong answer 10, you flip the switch, it's going to increase the voltage, And so the procedure goes on. And by the time we get to like the point where it's really shocking, you flip the switch and you don't hear anything, not even like a yell. But all throughout, you're over there pretending, oh, stop. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
But the leader, the guy, all he's saying is, you must proceed with the experiment. And I think the number was like 60% of people were like, okay. And they just kept flipping that switch, thinking they're harming the person on the other side. 60%.
The reason these studies disturb me
is
because I know myself enough to know that at least previously, I probably would have flipped that switch. And, I feel like my eyes have been opened quite a bit in the last few years since, and I think I've shifted in that. But I feel like a lot of people, I'll be honest.
Are you saying that because you were in law enforcement? So you had that aspect of saying like, you must do that. This is our job.
I've been a damn good rule follower my whole life.
Yeah.
Right. Except when I was a teenager. But so I know that I would do that. Not anymore. Right. I feel like at some point I took, the red pill or whatever. And my eyes have been opened.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Seth here from the North Idaho Experience. Sorry to cut in like this. This episode has been censored because we were posting some controversial content and spreading medical misinformation. So in response to that, we had to cut out a good chunk of it. If you want to see the unedited version, you can find it on Rumble. You can find it on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, all the big ones as well. I highly recommend you check it out there. There's some great topics that we covered in that section that got cut out. It is not misinformation. It's great information and pretty entertaining as well. So go ahead and check that out. You can find us on those platforms. We are always on those platforms, so you may prefer to find your information there because it will never be censored in those locations. Thank you again. Back to the show.
So, but I've met countless people that are here for certain reasons, and it just feels like, all right, it's like we all got each other's back.
Yeah.
You can just tell, like you say, you can look in an airport and see who's got your back.
Well, I mean, think of people who went to World War II. I mean, how many people on D-Day were in a group of people they believed in, right? Yeah. And they knew they're going like, hey, dude, we're about to storm a beach. Like a third, 3/4 of us are not going to make it, right. And they still went. Like that's kind of how I look at it up here. I'm like, if this is the place that I'm supposed to be with people and end times or anything else, like I'm good with the people that I'm around.
That's good.
I'm happy. I'm happy being up here.
Right. And honestly, I don't want to live in a society that after all of that, that's just rule followers, because that's a terrifying place.
It is. I was thinking this on the way over. I was like, what is the Latin term? I can't think of the Latin term. I can never remember the Latin term, but it translates into the world this day moves in contrarian ways. And, it's the outsiders. It's the folks that buck the system that help advance the system, or I don't call it system like it's a bad thing, but it's like our culture moves because people have innovated. People have said, wait, why are we headed this direction? Like we were talking about, after every crisis, we lose freedoms, right? But at the same time, think of how much other doors have opened. Like what is Elon Musk doing? It's incredible, right? And he's doing that after. So, and he's an outsider, So there are ways to think outside the box, to be an innovator and to, the way you approach your business or the way you approach your business, I'm sure you're because of who you are, who I'm learning who you guys are, you're like, how can we do this better? How can we do that? Not just for your own benefit, but for your client's benefit or for society's benefit.
Yeah.
You have that in you. And I think we just need to keep moving.
Yeah. And there are enough big voices out there. I think that there's hope where, we are heard. There's people fighting the good fight that have a large reach and a large voice, and they haven't been taken out by drones yet. So that's good.
Yeah.
There's hope. I agree.
First Amazon drone that goes over my house, be like, it's my airspace.
I kid you not. I kid you not that I have stocked up on birdshot lately after watching those damn Ukrainian drone videos that now have infiltrated my Instagram feed because I looked at
two of them,
and it's over now, man. And
so what is this? What are Ukrainian drones?
So
dude,
this is whatever your feelings are on the war in Ukraine. I think the face of warfare has changed. They're using, $1,000 drones to take out multi-million-dollar tanks on the daily. They're putting explosives on them and they fly them right into it.
Grenades following people.
Wow. That's the most disturbing part. And they're videoing it. So you have these videos of Russian soldiers, they're young people. They're thrown into this. They don't want to be there, but they're praying right before this drone flies into them and takes them out.
Oh my gosh.
And
they can
thousands of videos of this. Yes, they see them coming. And I'm like, that has fundamentally changed warfare 100%. And it's terrifying because it would be super easy for terrorist attacks in a place like the US for someone to, they can fly these drones from 10 miles away and put a little bit of explosives on it or hook a grenade to it and fly it right into a crowd. And there's I'm sure there are things being built that can counter that, but they aren't in the hands of the general public.
No. Right.
And
they can probably be deployed much easier because they're smaller, right?
Yeah, correct.
I mean, you go to a Super Bowl with a semi truck, you're just driving around, even outside the perimeter. Yeah. Open up the back, the drones fly out, land and
100 drones fly out.
I mean, how many times have they paused a game? You know what I mean? Like a baseball. Oh, there's a drone out there. What, and they're like, that could be completely different. So
it's coming. Yeah. I hate to say it, but it's coming.
Well, and if I can say something real quick, this is where culture is upstream of politics and upstream of life. There was a movie that I helped produce from one of these young filmmakers, and it was all about a drone operator who would send these drones to take out the state enemy.
There you go.
And that was like 10 years ago.
And when you're talking about drones, we see so little. If you've read, we talked about Richard Marcinko, right?
Yeah.
Rogue Warrior.
Yeah.
The guy talks about having a cell phone in his sock in Vietnam.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I didn't see a cell phone until 2000. That's when I got my first cell phone. So, you look at it and you go, well, okay, there's two reasons why technology is released: to make money, right? They might have the iPhone 25 right now, but it doesn't make sense for them financially to release that. They release a little bit of extra technology because there's money in it. And also at the same time, if that stuff exists, you see these F-35s vertical. And I'm like, you got to tell them they just made that and they're just telling us all about it.
Yeah. Right.
That probably has been around for 25 years. And now they're like, all right, well, look at this new thing.
It was probably the UFO sighting in Nevada in 1950.
100%.
Right, exactly. Something that just goes, nothing can do that.
Yeah.
So what's out there in terms of drones, we have no idea.
We have no idea. And but all of that stuff now is obsolete.
Oh yeah.
But we will, the US and other countries will keep spending massive amounts of money to buy this equipment that anybody can see is obsolete, right? A tank is obsolete now. If you can fly $1,000 drone into it and destroy it,
right? That's
pointless. Yeah, so it's fundamentally changed. It's super disturbing to me to watch that, and I'm sure there are people out there that are like, they're cheering on, this poor 19-year-old Russian that's getting blown up with a freaking drone. It's like that's horrible. I mean, war in itself is horrible, but now it's just hit a whole new level of depersonalizing it.
Yeah. Well, because we're watching it on our phone. Like the video right before it was some dad pranking his daughter.
Yeah.
And then I see somebody getting killed. And then I go to a cute puppy. And it's like, wait a minute. One of these things does not belong in my feed as a
Dude,
moral person.
Russia talked. There was a guy that defected from Russia that talked about this and how they were going to demoralize the U.S. and break them down over years, and it was a long game. And they talked about the desensitization of all of us. And you're 100% correct. We can watch a war happen and go to bed. Who really talks about the war in Ukraine? Nobody really anymore. I don't walk around. It was every day, right? But we don't have the mental capacity or the emotional intelligence to keep up with these anymore. World War II, that's what was talked about every day, right? Yeah. Like that was what you were into. Now, Russia can do whatever it wants to Ukraine, and none of us are paying any attention to it because we know there's a cute puppy, there's TikTok, there's way better stuff, and I still go to bed and I still have my natural gas, and electricity.
Yeah, we're not hurting as nearly as much as our past generations have.
Right. Yeah. Let me circle this back to how I started this, in that I have been stocking up on birdshot, and make sure you have a good semi-auto shotgun because it might be your only chance. I'm not kidding.
No, I'm taking that as if there's one thing I'm walking away from today.
Get yourself a semi-auto shotgun and a shit ton of birdshot. Yeah. Because that might be the last hope, which is wild to me.
Right.
So should we go back to you being the director of?
I don't know, man.
I think I like this, but I also want to know what is it?
What are we doing
in politics and everything else? What are you doing over here?
Yeah, so we founded Citizens Alliance of Idaho in 2021 as a legislator accountability project. So what that means is like we're solely focused on the state legislature, which is if you live there's 35 districts in Idaho, and each is represented by 2 House representatives and 1 senator. Okay. And so that's a makeup of 105 people that are in the Boise Capitol writing law, passing law. As you know, most of us are consumed by the national, by Congress or the presidency and the national news. But meanwhile, things are happening at the state level that sometimes you have no idea, what's going on. We know a lot more now because we're post, right? Because the states were the ones that were locking people down or saying, you don't need to wear a mask, right? As the other states were doing that. So there was a lot more attention focused on the states, because if we truly are a nation made up of states, like we're the United States of America, then each state should be sovereign. And so that is your representative. That is your senator in state. So if you don't know who those people are, look them up, and find out who they are and get to know them.
Do you have a good resource to find information for people? You know what I mean? Because I've been guilty of this. I go to vote and I'm like, crap, I'm seeing some names. I recognize the name, but I don't know anything about them.
Right.
And then you go and you vote. Well, I'll just vote my party line, but we'll get into that. I think that can be risky too.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're just looking for straight info, who is who, we're in Idaho. So you'd go to the Idaho government website and just, you can plug in where you live, and it'll tell you all your representatives.
Okay. We've had Jordan Redmond on the podcast.
Yeah. Great.
Before.
Yeah. So he represents District 3. He's actually my representative.
Okay.
I live in that district. You can also go to our website, which is citizensallianceidaho.org. And we have a look up type in your address and it'll tell you who your representatives are. But I think the government website will tell you like everybody, your city, your county, everybody all the way up, right? And so what we have is something called the pledge. And so we have a pledge, which is made up of 10 statements that says that we ask legislators to sign. And it's their value statements. It's, for example, it's like, I will vote to protect our Second Amendment rights, or right to self-defense. I will not vote to curtail free speech. These are just basic, fundamental, traditional American values,
Right. Protecting the laws that already exist.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Kind of interesting concept,
Not even
right?
a political thing, just the Constitution. Okay,
right. Exactly. Good. Yeah. It's all derived from the U.S. and the Idaho Constitution. And we ask folks to sign it. And I think right now, my numbers are a little mixed up because we're in election year right now. So there's some people that have lost their primary and some people that are winning and then going back. So I would say, generally speaking, we have about in the 30% range, 27 to 30% range of the entire legislature has signed our pledge.
That's it.
Which is, well, I mean, I look at that as that's great.
Awesome.
It's a good start. Yeah, but you're right. It's it. And I'll tell you, one of the main things that people say is, why do I need to sign your pledge? I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Well, how's that oath working out for us? Because Democrats take the same oath.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you guys lie, but
you can pretty much guess, but go on.
They're nuts. I don't know where in the Constitution it says you can chop off, that kids have the right to chop off their genitals and all that stuff. And they're trying to make this like law and legal. So, you know, I mean, it's incredible, right? So, so you're telling me you swore an oath to protect life and all that stuff in the Constitution, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and everything. And you're going to ruin a child's life with the law that you're trying to pass, and you swore an oath to the Constitution? I'm sorry, but that just doesn't.
It doesn't make sense. And like my stance on that is, if you're an adult, do whatever the hell you want, right? As long as it's not affecting me in a negative way, do whatever you want. But you're right. As a child, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
Your prefrontal cortex isn't fully formed until you're in your like early 20s.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know shit when I was under 18. Like I was a dumbass, right? Yeah. So I imagine a lot of these people are getting, you know, that surgery or hormone therapy or whatever, and then they're filled with regret later on, and then it's too late.
Well, then you have, God, there's so much that comes along with that. But I will say this, you know, you talk about upholding the Constitution. Why is it that, once again, seeing people wear a mask or not wear a mask, right? I'm not trying to alienate anybody, but when I drive around and I see an American flag in front of a house, I can almost guarantee you who that person's voting for. And that in itself, you know, there are people that just, well, I don't fly because I don't believe in this nation. And I know my immediate go-to is like, then just get out, right? Just leave.
Canada's great.
I'm not trying to create anything new. I'm trying to uphold the values that the country was established on. And when you see people that are not flying an American flag, or they don't have red, white, and blue, or, you know, they can't stand for the national anthem, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to break the nation down that is giving you basically everything that you have, right? I mean, we still have a border where people want to come across it and want to be here
for a reason, right?
Yeah. Right. And people, and you know what? The truth is that immigrants, lawful immigrants, Tom Granger, bring him up, right? He's one of our inspectors. That guy has more American pride than a lot of Americans do. He had to test. He probably knows more about the Constitution than most of us.
I bet he does.
And that's pretty cool, because there's people that understand that and they're willing to go through that process. But yeah, flying an American flag, I know who you're voting for.
That should not be controversial.
That's weird.
No, but it is. And apparently so is, you know, signing a piece of paper that says, yeah, I believe in these values, and I would sign on to that. And one may ask, why would you want to do that? And one of the reasons, of course, is, well, everybody takes an oath to the Constitution. We don't know what your values are. So this is to just kind of tell your constituents, tell voters what your values are. And then my job is then to say, hey, you signed the pledge. That's awesome. We're going to watch the votes and see if you really hold up to it. And if you don't, we're going to let your constituents know, hey, he signed this, and, you know, he voted for this, that, and the other. And it's not really.
Have you guys had to do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How do you do that, and how's that go?
Yeah. So we had a representative sign our very first year in existence. And her, after the first session, we have 3 tiers. You can be in good standing or bad standing, or there's a middle tier, you know, this like wiggle room, because, you know, and so if you're in bad standing, then that's where we try to point it out. And so this is where my media background came in, because when I was approached to help run this organization, I said, well, I'm not a political guy. I mean, I'm an ideological guy, but I don't do politics. You know, I'm not in any of that world. I'm a movie guy. And they're like, well, that's what we want. We want storytellers, because I can help craft the narrative. I can set out, okay, if we want to expose somebody's lies, or we want to expose that they're not really who they are, then you can't just walk up to say that guy's a liar, because you're like, well, who are you? You know, I have to present things to you and get you to, you know, trust me, trust the process, and go, okay, I get what you're saying. And I say, oh, and then this person she said she would do this, but then she ended up doing that. And you're like, well, yeah, that kind of sucks, but I still like her. And you're like, okay, that's fine. You know? And so you just kind of craft this narrative by sharing information. We use social media, we use mail, we use video, and whatever it is to kind of highlight throughout that session that she wasn't really holding up her end of the bargain. The following year, she didn't have an opponent in the primary, so she kind of just sailed through. And then the last 2 sessions that she was in office, she continued to just fail. And so we would put up billboards in her district.
Oh, wow.
we would, you know, again, do mailers, do ads in the local paper, just targeting her district. We didn't have to go statewide. Right. You know, we didn't have to run ads on the major television network. We just had to go to her constituents. Because again, you guys are on social media. You can micro target an area, you know, and say, I want this message to go right here to these people. And I can do that. You know, you're watching Hulu. I can put an ad right in between whatever show you're watching on Hulu, you know, and that exposes it. And again, it's just information. It's just saying, here's what she said. Here's what she did. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's up to you to just figure it out. It's just information. And in an age where information is so controlled by everybody else.
Yeah.
It's so valuable to be able to do that.
So that's the thing. It seems like, I'll just say the other side doesn't want to have discussion. Seems like you're an advocate for discussions.
Oh, I love discussion.
Right. I'm okay. I see that guy that, you know, that famous picture, he's sitting there with a cup of coffee and everybody's changed what it said on the front, you know.
Oh yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay having a discussion, but it seems like a lot of people that disagree with my point of view, specifically being conservative, just want to scream and shout.
Oh, sure.
Just want to yell. That's where I'm like, I think the next time I'm just going to have to punch you in the face and say that I felt that my life was in
your microaggressions.
I can't handle it. If that's going to be your response, then you're not going to have a conversation with me. And I think that's important. If you put the information out there, let people have their own discussion about it and figure out their own narrative. Right. But we search for our own narrative. I had this conversation with my mom the other day. She sent me something about Biden protecting the border. And then I sent her something, the exact same thing that was said in that. I sent her another article about Governor Abbott having to protect the border because of Biden's failure. It was the exact same narrative, but this person did it. No, this person did it.
Right.
And I sent it to my mom and I said, hey, we find our own narrative. Now we got to choose who to believe and everything else. And I go, I believe this narrative over here because I've seen some of the other stuff, but here's what it is. You can believe either one. It's the same exact article, but people have a tendency to cherry pick.
Right. Yeah.
Sounds like we have the same mom, but I can't even have that conversation. Right. There's just no conversation.
We all have family members like that. You know, they're stuck in their ways. Look, people don't want to be told that they're wrong because it makes you feel dumb. You know, a lot of people, you know, some people are open to that. Oh, you blew my mind. That's amazing. You know, like now I know. I mean, how many red pill moments have we had in the last 5 years for things, right?
I probably should say this to save face. My mom and I get along really well.
All right. Yeah.
We disagree fundamentally on a lot of stuff, but one thing I love about it is that we can have a conversation. I can say 100%, and we're still like, all right, love you. See you later. Like, politics should not get in between relationship and caring about people, and that's what I love about it. But,
that's important.
I better say that in case my mom.
He still loves you.
But I disagree.
How do you guys get funding for that?
So, we're a 501c4, and then we also have a PAC. And so the PAC comes into play. It's a political action committee that comes into play during election season. So the PAC will spend money directly endorsing or going after a particular candidate, right? But on the other side, the 501c4 means we're a nonprofit 501c4. So it's different than a 501c3 in that we still can't do like political work, you know, but all of our donors are private. So we don't divulge donors. Especially because we are kind of in the ideological space. So, you know, it protects their ability to help their cause without being totally exposed and canceled, you know, in our culture and stuff. So, you know, we'll raise money from small dollar amounts to big donors who see the potential of what we do in our mission. And our mission is to create a liberty state. You know, our mission is to have a citizen legislature made up of citizens who are looking out for their neighbors and each other. Not carving out, you know, carve outs for, you know, big corporations or, you know, doing favors for their friends. And, you know, I mean, it's so bananas to watch some of the footage and to hear some of the debates in the Boise Capitol where people will literally, one representative came up and said, look, if so-and-so, and she named the CEO of a big company, if this guy needs welders for his company, then we got to pass this legislation so he can get welders. And you're like, is that why we're here? To satisfy this guy's desire because he can't go out and find his own employees? That we got to spend taxpayer dollars training welders? Right? I mean, if you run a business, you want the government paying you know.
I want the government out as much as possible. As limited as possible.
Right. So
I am so thankful that you guys are doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
it's extremely important. And you're not like, one of you said this already, but I mean, you're just giving information and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There should be no one that should cancel that.
Right. I want people to be able to, I just had a conversation recently with somebody who said, you put this ad out against me and it caused people to like question. I was like, yeah. They're like, well, you weren't specific about what was wrong. And I was like, well, because I want people to talk to you. I'm not,
100%.
like if you don't, and then I said, I go, you're a politician. So I know it's hard to be held accountable. It's hard. Right. I mean, I get criticized. I've been criticized in the press for running this organization. Oh, this Matt guy from California and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, whatever, like I'll answer your questions, but at the end of the day, I understand that I put myself in this situation. I'm a public figure now when it comes to this in this state rather. And so you can write about me and I don't have to talk to you, and I don't, right. And when I'm not going to sit down with reporters and talk about my personal life or what motivates me.
You don't read the comments or anything? He won't let me read any comments.
I don't let Dave read comments.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no.
He gets fired up.
I'm on X too, so it's I get it all there too.
Yeah,
it's fun. But I know. But what drives me is like I have faith in my Savior, and I just stick with being on course with the truth and knowing that what I'm doing, I'm so blessed to be doing what I'm doing to save my own children, and that's my motivation.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have kind of a controversial question for you. So you talked about a little bit ago, you talked about the fact that innovators got us where we are, like people with different ideas, right? For change and everything else like that. There's a lot of liberal mindset that they are the innovators because there's these new ideas and this way to change the Constitution and change the way that we think and everything else. Is that something that we should pay attention to? I mean, I'm going straight political with you. Like, are those things that, keeping the Constitution the way that it is and the conservative values that we have, is there anything that you would encourage? Like, hey, maybe we should listen to some ideas because some of this is innovation. Some of this is, I mean, making a boy into a girl, I don't think is necessarily the right thing, right? I don't think it's too innovative, but
well,
progressives.
If you look at the progressive movement in the early 20th century, that's how the 19th Amendment came along, which gives all women, the right to vote. Right. So before that, it was just men or landowners. Even before then, it was like very early on. So there are things, universal suffrage. There's you could say that there was prohibition, right? So these were ideas that were like, oh, let's just end the sale of alcohol. It's completely illegal in the state, and that, and there was a lot of people that you could look at that and go, well, that would be a great benefit. You could even look at that now that we have cars, right? The amount of drunk drivers on the road. Right. If we just got rid of alcohol, then maybe we wouldn't have drunk drivers and kids dying in drunk driving accidents and families, tragic things happening, But what did that lead to? Well, it led to an underground market. It led to the mobsters, the rise of, crime and all this stuff. And so you look at that. I mean, the same thing can happen with, prohibition on marijuana, or, hey, let's deregulate it, like marijuana is legal now, so California, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Utah, these are all the states that surround Idaho, right? But Idaho's like, no, we're not doing that.
And it's still criminalized here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but I think it's going to stay that way because we have all the states around us. So if you absolutely need to go get your fix, you can go over there. But at the same time, what has happened to that society, right? So we're in that position now where we were lagged so long on that issue that we're like looking over there going, actually, we're not ready. I don't think our society's ready for that. So to answer your question is like, are there some good ideas? Sure.
Right.
There are, and we should listen to them all. And that's why I appreciate what you said earlier about just being able to talk and have the discussion, because so many people are and it happens on both the left and the right, where they're just so adamant about it that they can't even fathom.
No, and that's the thing. I think that's the thing that we have to realize. You got to be able to talk to somebody about it and hear their point of view. I mean, if you don't, then you're missing the opportunity to value what you believe in. If you're not willing to listen to the other side, right? It gives no bearing to what you believe in unless you can understand what the benefits and drawbacks of the other side are.
Right. And it makes your argument better because you get to refine it. You get to sharpen it. The more, it's a great little legislator who's up here. I'm going to give him a shout out, Joe Alfieri. I asked him about a Democrat in Boise, and I said, man, he's like he talks all the time. He always is questioning things. I said, but that must be really fun for you because he brings up good points. And even though he kind of is long-winded at times, he brings up good points. And he goes, no, I love that guy. He's like, look, when you're playing baseball, you need someone to pitch to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, that's what I feel like he is. He's the pitcher. And I get to hit, and I hit home runs off him all the time. And it just makes you a better hitter.
Yeah.
So, and that can only happen with civil discourse, which is why they don't want that.
Right.
You know, traditionally, the left doesn't want that. They want to shut down free speech. They want to shut down the discourse. They don't want you. I mean, for a while, CNN was like, we're not even going to cover what the President Trump is saying. Oh, because it could harm you. It could harm you to go to his rally and listen to something that he said. It's bananas.
It's bananas. You also have a podcast during the legislative session.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's called Idaho Signal.
Okay.
And we're actually not on any of the audio platforms. It's video. We just do video. And so it's kind of modeled after what you would typically see on like a CNN or a Fox News channel kind of thing. Like I'm a host and I have guests on remote, you know, like a cavalcade of guests coming on. And so we're on live during the legislative session. So only January through March.
Where can people find that?
It's on Rumble.
Nice.
YouTube, X, Telegram, and Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
Idaho Signal.
Idaho Signal.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so you guys basically talk about the issues that are coming up at the legislative session.
Yeah. So it's live. So we'll have, and because it's done through my organization, through Citizens Alliance, I will have my pledge signers come on. So I'll have them come on and talk about the bills that they're pushing and trying to advocate for. And mainly it's an action tool. Like I want people who are watching it in Idaho. It's solely Idaho. It's not a national news program. It's solely Idaho. And I want people to tune in and walk away that day saying, okay, that was important to me. I'm going to call so-and-so and make sure they know, or I'm going to sign that petition, or I'm going to do something, or I'm going to tell my neighbor about this. Like it's all about action. It's not just, you know, complaining or, you know, pontificating or anything.
Have you guys had any discussions with people from other states that are looking to do something similar, or are they already out there?
Yeah,
seems like a great idea.
Yeah, no, there's Citizens Alliance of America,
okay,
which is like the big fundraising mechanism. So that's where I get my grants to run our program here. But they're in a couple other states as well. With a pledge and doing the same thing. We were the first ones. And so I think because our model was so successful early on, it was like, oh, wow, well, let's see if other states want to get on board and do that. So
when we're talking about government influence and everything else, and I know this isn't a black or white answer, but you see a lot of the laws that are passed. I don't know how many laws are typically passed in a session.
I mean, bills are, it could be anywhere from like 400 to 500 to 800 to 1,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of government regulation.
Some of it's deregulation.
Okay. And
this is a Republican state.
And that's what I was asking because, I always talk about, people asked about law enforcement and they're like, oh, I'm going to call the cops for this. I'm like, time out. Maybe you should learn to handle this situation on your own. Unless you want more governmental influence, stop calling the cops for stupid things. Go talk to your neighbor on their own. I don't care if they're violating a small law or whatever else. Like it's a waste of time. So I guess that was my question is it generally better for a state like us to pass more laws, or since you brought up deregulation, is there more laws being passed to kind of deregulate and give people back their freedom a bit in terms of how they function?
Yeah, I think within the last decade, I would say that especially when it comes to Second Amendment laws, like gun laws, right? Like we are now one of the top rated gun, friendly states in the country.
That's why there's so many shootings up here.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I think like Idaho and Arizona kind of swap 1-2 every now and again, but constitutional carry and that whole thing. I mean, it's like that wasn't around 10, 15 years ago, So when a law passes, sometimes it's giving the rights back to the people. So, and you'll see that a lot, especially when we have folks that sign our pledge and are going in there saying, we got to get rid of this, we got to get rid of this. And sometimes it's just cleaning up language, like especially nowadays when we're talking about the transgender issue, it's like, well, what does the statute say defines a man or a woman? Because apparently society can't define.
And we have a law for that now, right?
Well, we have a definition.
A definition.
Yeah.
Right.
I say, well, this is what in Idaho, this is what a woman is. This is what a man is.
I love it.
Yeah.
A crazy concept that we ever had to pass anything like that ever.
Yeah.
And it gets us all on the same page. You can disagree with it, and run on that and have that be your issue and say, I'm going to change the definition. Sure. But but at least now we have like a clear understanding. And issues evolve over time. 5 years ago, were we talking about transgender surgeries in the way we are now? Like, I didn't even think that was a thing for kids. Like that was just, wild. So you kind of have to, again, adapt with the times, right? And come and, listen to these new ideas and stuff and adapt with it and keep it up. So yeah, not when you hear 1,000 new bills went through and they got passed and signed into law, and I would actually say the ones that are actually signed into law is probably less. I apologize for saying that because I'm looking at the list in my head and some of these bills just end up dying.
Who do we need to go after that says that I cannot have an outlet in my island in the kitchen anymore? Who's that?
Really?
Who's that person? Yeah, that's a new thing that came out.
Like at all, or it can't.
You cannot have an outlet. I just did this with Greenstone. We're doing a new bill. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a new code. You can't have it. And I'm like, what are you kidding? Who's that? Can you find who's that person? Is that in your pledge?
Well,
that's terrible.
Well, come on. If that's a federal regulation, it sounds like it's probably a federal.
No, it was a Washington law, and then we adopted it also.
So you have the contractor put the wiring in the island, leave it in there, capped.
Right.
Go add that shit.
I know. I'm like,
send me what they told you that they can't.
I'm gonna find it.
And we'll talk to Jordan. You said Jordan Redmond was in there, right? Let's make that Jordan Redmond's number one issue.
Kidding me?
I got to give a shout out to Jordan because he's been on our podcast. If you go to Life Public House in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho,
yes,
he's in there all the time. He's a very normal looking dude. You never would guess. Super approachable, extremely friendly. And here's a great example of the way government should be. Our friend BZ, he owns North Idaho Arms in Post Falls. It's a gun shop.
Just built an awesome AR with him too.
Yes, great guy. BZ is really passionate about Second Amendment rights. Obviously, he owns a gun shop. So he wants to push some legislation forward so that Idaho can never use commerce laws against the Second Amendment rights. That's what happened in Washington. That's why you can't import standard capacity magazines. Excuse me.
Nice.
So BZ was like, man, I want to do this thing. And I was like, well, I know a guy. So I did a 3-way text with Jordan and BZ. The next day, Jordan had BZ on the phone with his attorneys down at the state capitol, and they were working on it. And I'm like, dude, that's the way it should be.
Yeah. These are because he's a citizen legislator, and so many people are in there for a long time, and that marble dust, just corrupts their brain, and they think they work for the government. They think they work for the governor. And no, Jordan knows he works for the people.
Yeah.
And
he owns it. And that, dude.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's fantastic. And it's also the benefit of being in a smaller state. There's less than 2 million people or so.
We need to get back to that. I know me and him joke about the seatbelt thing all the time. He was CHP. I was law enforcement up here, and I used to pull up next to people all the time, and they'd have their seatbelt off, and they'd slowly reach up and put it on. I rolled down my window, and my take was that I'd tell them, say, look, hey, it's not even a moving violation. I can't even stop you for that. But let me tell you something. That's you. That's your choice to wear that thing or not. Right.
Yeah.
That's not something that affects somebody else other than if you get hurt, your family's affected by it. But we have to get back to a point that, look, it's your choice. You guys need to make choices for yourself. Right. Unless they're affecting somebody else. You don't go drink and drive. Right. You can hurt a family of 5. Yeah. But if it's outside of that, we need to get back to being able to say, okay, you want to have an outlet in the middle of your home? Go for it.
Yeah, that is wild to me. I mean, I just had a situation. I was down south staying in an Airbnb or whatever, and the outlets around the counter weren't working. And I was really upset because I was like, I need to make my coffee. Like, what's going on here with these outlets, And so I just grabbed the coffee machine. I went over to the island and I plugged it in, and it worked there.
So you would have been screwed if you didn't have an outlet.
Yeah, if I didn't have an outlet on the island.
We try to protect people so much that we just become stupid.
Yeah, that's stupid. Well, they're getting rid of like fireplaces in California.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fireplaces, like
you can't have a fireplace. You can't burn wood and fire.
You want to talk about losing?
We did that for
rights.
like thousands and thousands of years. Right?
Good Lord, that's how you keep your house warm.
Yeah.
Well, they're also getting rid of all like gas powered lawn implements. Like you have to switch to electric.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's happening.
Well, here's a new one, right? They pushed all the EV vehicles and everybody go get these. Yeah. Well, now there's a big thing I just saw the other day is that Pennsylvania especially is now going to impose a massive tax because they don't have a gas tax from those cars. So now they're going to impose this huge yearly tax on anybody that's an EV vehicle because they're using the roads for free. Wow. They're not paying a gas tax. And
Can you imagine getting a bill for all the gas tax that you pay? Right. Like it's enormous. We have no idea how much money we're actually paying.
Oh yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's incredible.
That's awesome.
Matt, thank you.
This is fun, guys.
All right. So citizensallianceidaho.org.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. That's where you can get some great information. Where are you guys on social media? Same name?
Yeah. On X, it's citizens_Idaho.
Okay.
I'm at True Matt Edwards. on X, and that's pretty much where I am.
There you go. That's where you get your info. Thank you, sir. We need to do this again sometime.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Edwards finding it.
See ya.